What's up, everybody?
Coming in hot.
Coming in hot. All right, start over.
By the power of Grayskull.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of Your Forgotten Youth. I am Craig Powell. This is Zack, and this is Nate. So what's up, man? How's it going?
Not too bad. Honestly, I just got done playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Of course, you fucking nerd. And I'm here with...
Nathan Stepchinsky, drinking a beer.
Drinking a beer. Okay. And this is the very first episode of Your Forgotten Youth, so we wanted to kick this off by telling you a little bit about what we were thinking with this. I don't know if we really know what we're thinking, but we're gonna try to figure it out as we go along. Basically, we like to stand around on any given day.
Whoa, whoa, boss!
We like to stand around and talk about stuff, geek stuff, especially like from years past, from childhood and whatever else, and we both like podcasts and listen to them a lot, and we thought, hey, why don't we sit around and talk about stuff like we usually do but record it?
You know, that means we can't talk at work anymore.
Okay, well, no, we practice there.
Oh,
and
okay.
we do it here.
Okay.
So that's what it is. So basically, Your Forgotten Youth, we're going to talk about start out by talking about stuff that we liked, I guess, when we were kids. And we're relatively close to the same age, so we're going to probably have a little bit overlap, maybe a little bit, a couple years younger, maybe, I don't know.
Well,
so, but over time, we'll probably have other people on, so we'll have different opinions from different years, I suppose. But, so yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about stuff like that. So for this first one, to kind of kick it off, we had the idea that we would take a few different subjects, I guess, and decide what our three favorite things were from that, and that's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna get it kicked off right now. So I think we decided we're gonna start with TV. Now I will say we tried to set up some ground rules that literally were changing up into the day of this recording.
Things change.
You gotta go with it. So basically the ground rules starting out, we're going with cartoons specifically. We're not talking about live action TV. We're going to go with cartoons. And I think we have the caveat, we're not talking about Scooby-Doo or the Roadrunner or anything like that. So I mean, yeah. So you've got the classics, I guess, but we're not going to talk about those because everybody watched those, right? Do they still watch that? Kids still watch that? Wile E. Coyote, they know who that is?
No, it's all racist.
What's a computer?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
No, so
That's what we're taping on.
Okay.
Can you rewind that?
So we're going to talk about cartoons specifically. We compromised and are going with our top three. And if you'd like to stick in an honorable mention, because I'm going to, we'll go with that.
It's still a little hard to remember them all, but
okay.
I know my faves.
All right, so I'm going to go in descending or ascending order. I'm going to do the best one last, whatever that is. I don't have time to look that up. Whatever that is, I'm going to end with the best one. So we'll go back and forth, and I think we'll allow some conversation about each one if we like, on if we remember it or not. So how about you kick us off with your number 3 top cartoon?
I would say the X-Men, because I first started reading X-Men comics in '92, so it became oh my god, they're making a cartoon out of this, so I gotta watch it and see how bad the animation looks. But the stories were pretty good. Everybody's seen the Logan caressing the picture, so that would be my number 3. Now, it got kind of crappy, and stories were kind of, but
yeah. So I'll just go ahead and say this one's on my list. So you must have looked at my list.
Maybe so.
Okay.
Maybe.
X-Men's on my list too, actually. So we'll just we'll combine my number 3 because that was number 3 on my list too. So conveniently we had the same one. But yeah,
Of course.
I would agree. X-Men the animated series, and I actually have all of it digitally now.
Yeah.
And I went back not too long ago and rewatched not every single episode, but quite a few. It hasn't necessarily aged quite as well as I would have thought that it would have. I don't think it's horrible.
Yeah.
Honestly, the animation style is I still like it, which may be me being nostalgic. I don't know, but because it is a lot different, I think, than modern cartoons look. But I think it's still pretty good, and for the time, especially, it was pretty awesome, I think. So yeah, that was my number 3 also, X-Men, the animated series. All right, so Zach, it's your turn. What's your number 3?
Are we going around? Like, so do I pick one and then you guys pick one, or?
Who's going first? Do I talk first? Do you talk first? Or...
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
What are you doing?
Okay. Yeah. So go ahead. You start with your number 3.
Re-rolling dice? I can do
yeah.
that. Third favorite cartoon, most definitely be the X-Men cartoon.
Holy shit! We're batting 3 for 3. All 3 of us picked X-Men.
Yeah, it's I think it fits really well in the third slot, and that's just.
So what do you think on how it's aged? Do you think it, if you go back and watch it now, do we feel like it aged well?
Go back and watch it now. For me, absolutely not. Like, there were some pretty cheesy things in it. I mean, like, I still remember some of the lines like Wolverine had, like, and I think watching it now, I would just laugh my ass off to some of the things that he says. I still remember, like, his line, Gambit stopping him and, like, I go where I want to go. And, like, you know, it was just, like, a really dramatic part in a cartoon. I remember that. And nowadays, it's like, that's ridiculous. I think for certain age groups, it would probably still really well. I mean, the X-Men cartoons have still, like, progressed. I think they stopped making them like, maybe a year ago, but they've done a lot.
Like, they branched off and had, like, Evolution and other ones. And they did, well, now, like, they do all those freaking, like, motion comic, like, ones or whatever, where it's, like, the Astonishing X-Men, but it's a motion comic.
That's just being money grab.
I feel like they modernized, like, some of the dialogue, like, maybe some of the lines, because the story was good. I remember being a kid, and I remember, like, the story being good. The things that, like, were frustrating was how much they jumped back from old episodes to new episodes to old episodes back to new episodes. So I remember having, like, going through that frustration as a kid. Just being like, I just watched this cartoon. It's like the 9th time I've seen this one episode.
Yeah. Nice.
I'm kidding. It's probably like the 13th or 22nd time, but I watched that show quite a bit.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so yeah, we all had that then. All three of ours were that. So for my number 2, since we shared the 3, so for my number 2 had to be Ninja Turtles. For me, that was it, man. Ninja Turtles, and I absolutely adored everything about the Ninja Turtles. I don't know the first time I really got into it. I think it was just a thing, you know, like everybody got into it. In fact, I didn't even know it was a comic book until I got older.
Well, most of the stuff growing up was just, here's a cartoon, watch it.
Right.
And then it was like, where did this come from? It was a comic.
Right. Yeah, so, like, I just got sucked in because of the TV, and then years later I went back. Have you even actually read any Ninja Turtles comic books?
No.
Yeah.
Not the originals. I'm pretty sure I've bought some growing up, but nothing.
So I heard in a podcast a while back, like, the story of how those two guys actually got the comic made. Yeah. And it's pretty crazy, and I think I will at some point do an episode just talking about it because it was a backstory I never knew. So it's impressive in hindsight, but I only cared about the cartoon. Yeah. That was what it was all about for me. And by extension, I got into all the other things. We'll talk about the non-cartoon versions of the Ninja Turtles later. But yeah, that was number 2 for me. What's your number 2?
You know, that's actually a really close first for me.
Was it? Yeah, so what's your thoughts on Ninja Turtles?
I watch that one all the time. I mean, just the theme song, everything. That's like something that just, I mean, you can hear it and just know the entire song. That was really close to being on my top 3. I watched the Ninja Turtle movies quite a bit. I mean, I'm sorry, the cartoons. And actually, I watched the live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies.
Hey, we'll get to that.
Yeah, I know. That's coming up, I'm sure. The cartoons, I remember I enjoyed liking them, but I wasn't like a fanatic about them. Maybe not as my brothers or anything. I just remembered I liked watching them. But they weren't like something that I was obsessed to see as soon as I got home, like I was with X-Men or Beast Wars. So they're high up on my list, but I don't think I could put them in my top 3,
well,
actually.
like, I'm a fat man now because it made me want to eat pizza. So, like, I blame them for that.
It spoke to you, like in a...
Yeah. Hey.
Like a
I
way.
jumped around like I pretended to know Taekwondo in the
Well, yeah, of course.
backyard.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So out of the Ninja Turtle weapons, what was the one you always would default to? Like, if you could choose one of their weapons, what would it be?
Oh, nunchucks.
Nunchucks? Is that you?
Bow, because it's just a stick.
Donatello?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. I mean, you were at my like place before when I lived in Oklahoma. I had like nunchucks on the wall. Remember?
Yeah.
For like my weapon
we
of
may
choice.
or may not have tried to swing them while being inebriated.
Yeah,
That probably went
Yeah.
well.
Probably happened, I think.
I did.
So for me, like, the respectable answer is I want to be Leo because, like, you know, he's the leader and, like, you got to look up to the guy. But really, you want to have attitude like Raphael. And although, really, how functional is the Sai as a weapon? It's like rounded off. It's not sharp.
What was that? Did you play that Nintendo game with the Ninja
Yes.
Turtle? Yeah.
Which one? Like the level where it was like a burning building and you had to like move through it or whatever.
That was the. Wasn't that Super Nintendo? No, that was a
The
Nintendo.
top-down
Nintendo.
version one or the...
There was like
sides.
a role-playing game version of Ninja Turtles, and you could pick any of the 3. I'm sorry, any of the 4 there. But the one with the size on that, like, it was the worst character you could possibly pick.
I remember the one where you jump up in the air and like sort of like
Spin.
do a flip, and then you would kick, but it would just legs straight out, like you know, like straight down.
Was it the one where you drove the van around?
Yeah, I think so.
Isn't that the one? That's the same one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Drive the van
You
around.
drive the
remember
van
the-
around and go down the manhole, and then it turned into a side-scroller.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we're talking about the same one then. Because I remember if you played with, some of those weapons, you're just stupid. You're just, yeah.
My number 2 would have to be Transformers. It's more than meets the eyes. Story-wise, it was kind of cheesy, because I told you about that list I read not too long ago. Pretty stupid premises. But robots coming to Earth, trying to take our energy. Kind of sounds like Iraq War, maybe? No, I'm just kidding. But it was a good story. I downloaded it and tried to watch it a couple years ago. I had to stop when Rumble punched a guy in the face. Dude lived. I'm sorry. If you can make earthquakes,
Yeah.
you punch somebody, you die.
Yeah. But I think it was like a long-standing thing with all of those shows where they were like, they're action-oriented, they have to battle, they have to be in fights, but we can't kill anybody.
Now,
Because...
this was a human.
Oh, okay.
So he punched a human and he
Yeah,
lived.
okay. But they can't kill anybody, because it's you want the 6 to 10-year-old kids to buy the toys and the parents still to be okay with it. So that's what it is.
Some people dying.
But I think, and I don't know if it was a rule in the 80s or that all of those shows that came out in the 80s and into the early 90s, if they had to give a public service announcement at the end, because they would always
on G.I. Joe when a plane explodes,
Yeah.
but everybody parachuted away.
yeah, exactly.
Kind of hard to believe that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I agree. It's a good show. I was not, to be honest with you, as much into that, and I don't really know why that is. Maybe it was because like now, everything's on demand.
Yeah.
Like everything is available to stream like instantly at any given time. And the funny thing is we have every option in the world to watch, and we still can't figure out what we want to watch because there's too many options. But back then, like, it wasn't unlimited options. It was like you had to basically live with what they served up to you after school.
You gotta also think what came on right before school.
Right.
I remember when some shows came on before school. It's like, oh, I gotta wake up to watch this, or I don't get to see it.
Right.
And you never get to see it again because maybe they'll show it once a year, which was crazy.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like the concept of being able to go out and buy it in a collected set, which would have been VHS at the time.
Would you get, like,
I mean,
2
yeah, like
episodes,
they would
maybe?
release them. In fact, I have, speaking of X-Men, I have somewhere around here the VHS of like the first 2 episodes, which
Oh,
was
yeah.
like Night of the Sentinels and some other
It was
one. And
just one episode.
yeah, it was like 1 or 2 episodes on each VHS tape, and each one was $20. So it was like more than I had to spend as a kid, or more than I could convince my parents to spend. And if I'm gonna blow $20, it's not gonna be on a VHS tape. You know what I mean?
Well,
like
yeah.
buying toys.
Like our house, we only had one VCR in the
Yeah.
living room, so you don't get to watch it that often.
Exactly. So yeah, I didn't get into that for whatever reason, but I had a lot of friends that were into it, so like I kind of was familiar with the storylines.
So you had the gist.
The gist. Yeah, I was all about the gist.
All right, I want to say Transformers, but to be honest, like I was a huge fan of the Beast Wars show. Like that one, and I think that one was it's a few years after. I mean, I watched Transformers quite a bit, but the Beast Wars was like the same idea, but you know, more modernized with a little bit of like kind of like 3D graphics. So I remember the Beast Wars just having a really good story. And I mean, I played the video games and everything when I was a kid on that one. I played the Transformer games too.
So we didn't have Beast Wars,
No.
but we did have Transformers. Though.
That was past my
I figured
13
you guys
years.
had
That was
Transformers.
past your 13, you
Yeah.
old man.
Yeah.
I figured
He's the
you
old
guys
man
had
here,
Transformers. And that is a top one usually. But I remember like the Transformers cartoons. Like I didn't like the people in it. Like I liked the Transformers themselves, but I didn't like the people in them. I just thought they were too. I don't know.
They
I was
were
like
the
a-
worst.
I was an X-Men fan, so I mean they weren't like Wolverine at all.
They didn't
Yeah.
go where they wanted to go.
Yeah, they didn't go.
But
They went
They didn't
where-
roll.
let's see. So your number 2, Nate,
Mine was Transformers.
was Transformers. So we've covered. So we're actually like.
Oh man,
Pretty
Me and
close
you were
here,
almost
yeah.
the
And
same
then-
on there.
Let's see. What's your number 1 then? What do you think? Your favorite TV show?
And is this just cartoons?
Yes, just cartoons. That's the criteria.
I think we're gonna have to come back to that one because
Oh.
that's
All right, so my number 1, and I was torn on this, and I'll talk about the one I was torn with in my honorable mentions. But I think for me, and here one more caveat we forgot to discuss. Actually, we decided that this is shows that you watched anytime up to the age of 13. So basically non-teenager, so when you're a kid, right? And does yours
Yeah.
still fit that category
Yeah.
for you? Yeah, okay. So because I think we'll probably talk in another episode about ones that were older, like teenage years and beyond. So for me, I think by and far, if I'm honest with myself, the one that stayed with me the most, the one I've gone back and watched the most, and the one that had the biggest impact on me was easily Batman the Animated Series. I was prime market for that when it came out. I think I was 10 or 11 when it came out. That's the one that I remember leaving school and booking it home, because I walked home most of the time, and I would like sprint. It was 6 blocks or something to my house from the school, and I would rush home to watch that because it would come on at like 4. They usually would show 2 episodes, I think, back to back, maybe something like that.
Maybe after they had gotten a few
Yeah,
shows.
and that one had the biggest impact on me because it was the first time, and maybe it was because also I was 10 or 11, so you're starting to kind of have an idea about more sophisticated stuff a little bit than when you're 6 or 7. But the storylines and the character development, and I will say, unlike some of the other ones we mentioned, this one's aged pretty well for the most part. I mean, it's still kind of held up there as
it was
being good.
Well, it's like when they first started actually caring about how it looked,
right.
and a continuation of animation throughout,
Sure.
where it wasn't like this looks okay and this looks like pure crap.
Right, exactly.
And
And established really did more world building beyond just the basic faces of things. I mean, they kind of established a look and a feel for everything that was their Gotham, you know? And of course, historically, we owe a lot to that show because it introduced Harley Quinn, for instance. You had some people that got their start on there, like Paul Dini, who was one of the writers on the show, ended up, of course, doing a lot of other things, including writing comics for a long time, the creator of Harley Quinn. And then it directly inspired then the 1989 Tim Burton Batman also, which kind of kicked off a new non-60s campy
Yeah.
Batman wave.
And that's the thing. All I ever knew of Batman was the campy 60s Adam West. And when Batman the Animated Series came out, I actually got to know who Two-Face was, Clayface, a lot of faces.
Yeah.
They actually brought some other
But
characters
hey,
in.
that specifically, you just said, you mentioned Clayface. That episode from Batman the Animated Series, do you remember that one?
Is
Where
that
he was
the
like
one
an
where-
actor, right?
I thought because he was getting too old.
Yeah, and then some experimental face cream
Yeah.
from like... What's the deal, too? There's always experimental drug companies in Batman that are making like
Hey.
chemicals all the time.
Who
I don't
knows
know.
what goes on in comics?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the chemicals, the thing, I guess. But yeah, and so he had tried it, and it started to
It
like
worked.
deform his face.
Yeah.
So, and then he had to use more, and then he like fell into it or
Like he fell into
something,
it.
like a vat of
And
it
another
or
thing,
something.
Too many people falling
Yeah,
into
they're falling
vats.
into stuff all the time. I
Come
mean,
on.
it's OSHA's worst nightmare. Batman the Animated Series.
Well, I thought Star Wars was OSHA's. No guardrails.
Yeah, no guardrails, and everybody's losing hands, but whatever. No, so but then where Batman like figures it out, and he like, so what have you become? What have you become? I can't do it. I like the Kevin Conroy Batman better than Christian Bale Batman, but he's like,
Hold
what
on.
have you become? And he turns on the monitors like in his trailer. He's got like TV screens everywhere, and he starts putting up all the roles of that he's played over the years in his career, and he starts morphing into all of them, and it's like overload. He can't handle it. The reason I remember that is because that was one of the first times as a kid where I was connected, where I was like, that's sad.
Yeah.
You know, like that's sad, and I feel bad for that guy.
Yeah.
Did you watch it? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I watched that one. I was actually into the comics quite a bit because I remember when I was watching a lot of those cartoons, I got into comic books pretty early, and I liked the Batman comics. And every time I would get to the cartoon, like there was episodes that I liked, and then there was episodes I just really did not like. So that one, that was like a love-hate with me on the Batman one. But was that your number one?
That was my number one, and yeah, and it's so funny, like you mentioned the comics, because I think it was around the same time that it would have come out. I was really like getting into Batman, but one of my earliest, like my dad and I would watch the show, the 60s, Batman show or whatever, the Biff Bam Pow show, and so I kind of like had a exposure to Batman that way. But I remember in cereal boxes, back when they gave you cool shit in cereal boxes, like they had one, and I don't remember what brand it was, but it was they were putting in smaller comic book issues into cereal boxes, and they had a limited run of, it was called Batman, The Untold Story of the Batman, and it told like an origin story that is actually way more in depth. It was like one of the first times they said that his father was a Batman too, like an older version of Batman or something. And it was like a 3-issue series, and I ended up buying like 15 boxes of cereal in order to get the
was it one of
like
those
the
mail off ones?
version of Beat?
and I loved it. It was around the same time as the show, so it was just like Batman Overload, which then was also fed by the movie too.
Yeah.
But,
I guess I'll do my number one.
Yes, you're number one. Go for it.
My number one, Robotech.
Mm.
Now, some people think Robotech is horrible because it's a bastardization of 3 different Japanese cartoons, anime, if you will, spliced together into this horrible amalgamation of crap.
Yeah.
But it brought me into anime, and the first series is quite honestly the best series. I've watched it many times. I've gone and watched the Macross series and subtitles, horrible redubbings, all the movies I've downloaded. Wink. Legally.
Totally legally, kids.
Yes. That brought me into anime. Now, I believe I heard it was the first episodic animation ever where the story is actually connected. They had interracial relations in a cartoon. Yeah. Favorite character dies.
Spoiler alert.
I didn't say who it was.
Okay.
Could have been Min-Mei.
Hey, and if we have to put out warnings, spoiler warnings for things that came out 25 years ago,
More than 25.
turn off this podcast because
we're gonna spoil a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So it's the Jon Snow of anime, basically. He said it's a bastardized. Why is that?
For some reason, Harmony Gold some stupid company in the United States bought the rights to throw 3 animes into one. First series is the Macross. Second is Most Beta. Third is... No, I can't remember what the second one is. Third one is the Most Beta, where it's basically alien ships come down, one crashes on Earth, we rebuild it, aliens come back, try to take it.
Independence Day. Will Smith.
Whoa.
Okay.
Whoa.
Okay.
They just made all 3 stories into one continuing story. But the first series is best. Don't watch the other 2 unless you don't consider it the same thing. Now, how can... Go back. Harmony Gold is losing the rights in 2020 so that all of the rest of the Macross can come over. Like 7, all the movies, what's the newest one out now. They've had a long run in Japan. Kind of like Gundam and all those other ones that are huge, super huge over there. Get no traffic over here. I hope that happens because Macross Plus was an OVA of 4 episodes. It was badass, and it had Bryan Cranston.
Really?
Yes, he is the good guy.
He's the one who knocks Walter White.
True.
Okay.
And he's in a white jet. So. Plus,
Sweet.
there's transformable jets. It's always awesome.
Sweet.
That's what I like.
What do you think? Do you have a number 1?
Yeah. I mean, it's, and this is weird, but my toss-up is actually Spider-Man and Ghostbusters. Those are like the 2, I watched those all the time when I was a kid. Both of them. Actually, I watched a lot of them. And I think the Ghostbusters, I watched it so much, and that was just because I was like the only one in my family who would wake up early enough to watch it. And then it was Spider-Man, which I always watched with my brothers. I'm gonna go with Spider-Man as my number 1. And that was because it actually tied in so much, sometimes with the X-Men universe cartoons. And also brought in Punisher. The story was actually one of the only cartoons that I remember actually like progressing past, like within that same series, like just his roundabout neighborhood in New York. Like he actually went, in the series, he went further than everything he was dealing with in New York. And that was the one I watched the most, and that was just because they continued it for quite a while. Like that one, I remember like it went on for a good while. And I remember watching like an episode that like talked about Spider-Man being like one of the best heroes and like broke it down and everything. And I remember like watching it, I was like, man, I want to be like Spider-Man. Which is funny now because I'm actually more of a DC fan now than I am a Marvel fan. But back then I was more Marvel. Yeah.
Well, let's not bring the hate in just yet.
Yeah.
Let's just wait.
Don't take sides.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I never still have seen that.
Well, I will let you borrow it.
Well, that fits in because I think we said down the road we're going to do an episode of one of things that we've never watched that we've put off.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. So we'll have to do, this will maybe cross over with the review shows that we'll do occasionally of some retro reviews going back and reviewing things that came out a long time ago. They're not new, but they're new to us kind of deal. So
Harry Potter.
Yeah, I've never watched Harry Potter. So, and then probably we'll get hate mail. We'll get hate fan mail saying, why have you not watched Harry Potter?
It didn't look good to me. Let's put it that way.
Oh. Okay.
I'm sorry. Little kid.
Okay.
Getting pulled out of his house. I guess. I don't know.
Okay. Well, we'll have to do that. So, do you have any honorable mentions? Ones that didn't make your top 3, but they're like fondly remembered?
I fondly remember, what was the one with the Jungle Book characters flying planes?
That's on my honorable mentions.
Okay.
Tailspin.
That's it.
Yes.
I was thinking Tailspin.
That is on my honorable mentions. Tailspin.
Because it was funny.
Yes.
And why were they always flying planes?
I have no idea.
And they're animals.
I have no idea. Was that after your time, Zach?
I think so. I don't remember.
I think they were drug runners.
They were drug runners. They were picking up drugs in Cuba or somewhere. Colombia, I don't know. Yeah. So that one was one. We had Ducktales.
Ducktales.
Actually, Ducktales, yeah, I'll give that one. And I played the Nintendo Ducktales, the Nintendo game of it, and I was a huge fan of their video game, Ducktales, too.
But DuckTales.
That's also
and that's another thing.
It's also on my
I didn't
honorable
get
mention.
Disney Channel
Yeah.
up until 98 when it became free for some reason.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, because it used to be premium.
yeah, it was a
right?
premium channel.
Yeah.
And I never had it. No one ever had it.
Only those fancy people with big satellite dishes in their front yards had that kind of stuff.
But
unless you would catch it on Sunday nights on ABC,
the
Wonderful World of Disney, when they would show random things.
Hey Disney, you owe us some money for this.
Yes.
No, but
You own
it
everything
used to
else,
be-
so leave us
was it-
alone.
Did they show it on ABC?
I think
On
I don't
Sunday,
know.
Saturday morning.
I don't know.
I don't know.
We should have done our research better, but
That's for later.
that's for later. Okay, we can clarify.
But
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I watched it though, so I don't know. I guess I had Disney. I don't remember having anything special, but maybe it was reruns or. But yes, I love Ducktales. I liked Tailspin. On my honorable mentions, I've also got Animaniacs.
I feel like those are more of like they're like fillers. Like I'd watch on the side.
Yeah, right.
are you psyched for the remake?
I'm nervous for the remake.
Yeah, I'm not.
I'll probably give it a try, but we'll see. I'm
Have
worried.
you watched the DuckTales remake?
Yes, it's interesting looking. It looks okay. I just as
Well,
with
it's got
anything,
the Doctor in it.
yeah, like going back and capturing that again. I don't know if
And
that'll
that's another
happen.
thing I never watched. Doctor Who.
Oh, that's for a whole nother deal.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that another time. Also, I would say in the Animaniac, I had Tiny Toon Adventures.
Oh, hold on.
Did you watch that?
Muppet Babies.
They're tiny. Muppet Babies.
Did you see the Star Wars episode? Favorite one?
No, I have not.
I think they all acted like Star Wars characters.
Well, I'll watch it and then we'll link to a YouTube of it because I'm sure there's a YouTube of it in the show notes. So here's a couple. A couple really kind of throwaway ones, but I'll mention Space Ghost, Coast to Coast. Zach, did you ever watch that?
Oh hell yeah, I did. Yeah, I watched that like all the time. I think that was like one of the first cartoons like I watched that was like more of a adult teenager to adult humor, like on some of the things just to kind of get.
Right. Yeah. They totally snuck that stuff in on that show. Did you ever watch that?
Yeah, well, I
The
think
humor-
that was, Space Ghost Coast to Coast was, I think, past our 13 age range.
Is it?
I think so. Now,
think
did you
I
ever
looked
watch
it up, though,
Space
no.
Ghost?
So I looked it up though, and I think it was early '90s. So maybe this is showing our age difference
Ooh.
though. So when did you turn 13?
93.
See, and I turned 13 in '96.
Okay,
so
so
your
the
13
crossover.
is yeah that's where we're hitting
Okay,
it.
yeah, then that is...
So for me, like in that 10, 11, 12 is when that show was on, and I just remember not seeking it out, but like staying up and my parents not realizing I'm watching TV after I'm supposed to be in bed. Sorry, Mom, if you're listening. But it came on, and I remember distinctly that some of the humor went over my head because it was a child's show that they snuck in humor, which is normal now, but...
Did you ever watch The Space Ghost and all those other ones on USA
Yeah.
on Sunday mornings?
Yes.
They were doing drugs.
Yeah,
I don't know what
probably.
I don't know what they
You know what else? This would definitely be post 13
What's that?
that I watched from USA. Up all night.
Hey,
Only late at Friday nights.
I watched Joe Bob Briggs.
That's all we're going to talk about.
All right, so
Okay.
I miss you, Joe Bob.
So the other two that I found shocking that I weren't in my top 3, and they would have been in my top 5 if you would have let us get away with 5,
Right.
but you said 3. So that's what we're going with.
We're still talking about it, so.
Yeah, I guess so. So these definitely would have been my slot 4 and 5, and I would say one of them would be Thundercats. I was pretty big into Thundercats. Did you
I like
watch it?
Thundercats, and I had some of the toys.
Yeah.
It was good. I mean,
It's not aged well either.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, Thundercats.
Yeah.
That was an honorable.
Thundercat. Yes.
Thundercats,
Oh, man.
G.I. Joe.
Yeah, Thundercats was a big one for me too. We actually even had some of the movies, like bought the VHS tapes just to watch some Thundercats show, and that's just because like my mother knew we were such big fans that she just bought us the VHSs of Thundercats.
One of my honorable mentions would have been G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
I mean, fighting Cobra every week probably could have got kind of old.
Yeah.
Nobody dies.
Hey, we fight the same people every week in reality, so that's just the way it is.
That's life.
Okay. So G.I. Joe for me, it's weird I never really got into it because as a kid I loved the little green army men, right?
Yeah.
And I had like all the different then I had some vehicles and stuff. Like I liked all that, but it never translated for me into actual G.I. Joe like love. I never
I think
watched the show really.
the toys drove the show.
Well,
more.
yeah, sure.
So, I mean, come on.
Darkwing Duck.
Darkwing Duck was an honorable mention for us.
True.
Yeah.
An honorable mention, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then the last one I had, which I don't know. This is debatable for me. If I gave myself more time, I probably could have talked myself of changing the order and stuff how we gave them. But I loved He-Man. I was a big He-Man fan.
He-Man was in my honorable mention, but it got really stupid.
Especially with mentioned in the public service announcements, like some of the and the way Skeletor talked. He-Man. Yeah. But I loved it though, and that definitely fueled. We'll talk about it in the toy section, but yes, He-Man was definitely in mine.
Yeah, I liked He-Man. I mean, it was really that one was like just like the Batman for me. Love hate. There were some episodes I was like, this is great, and then other episodes was like,
yeah. And unlike Batman the Animated Series, He-Man has not aged as well as a cartoon.
No, it happened.
Let's see. We had Captain Planet.
I didn't have Captain Planet.
I had Captain Planet.
That
would be
Muppet
close to
Babies.
number 3 for me on that one. Actually, I watched a lot of Captain Planet.
Nice. I had Muppet Babies. Sorry.
Mm.
So wait, Captain Planet, Zach, does that make you want to take care of the Earth now more?
Next question.
Don't forget Captain N, the Game Master.
What are you talking about?
Or is it not? Is it Captain N, the Game Master? Yeah, that's it.
Captain N and the Game Masters? Is that totally a Nintendo thing?
Yeah, dude gets sucked into the Nintendo, and he's got Belmont, Mega Man, and Kid Icarus. But look how horrible they look. They look horrendous.
No.
A Nintendo show.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Looks
I
like
never watched that.
Fly meets the
Yeah. Archie.
Ferngully?
Well, remember the Captain Lou Albano Mario TV show?
Oh,
Where he had the two cartoons?
Yes, I do remember
The
that.
Mario and the Link.
All right, so you have any more TV honorable, or we're good?
Trying to think. I don't think there's anything under 13. Because most of the good stuff came after 13.
Save it. It's a teaser for future episode there. So yeah. Hey everybody, thank you for taking the time to listen to Your Forgotten Youth, Episode 1. We had a really great time recording this, and we hope you enjoyed listening us geek out about our favorite cartoons from when we were kids. We recorded so much that we actually are splitting this into 3 episodes. Part 2 will be coming out soon, where we talk about our favorite movies. And then eventually, that'll be followed up with Episode 3, where we talk about our favorite toys. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it when that comes out. For the stuff we discussed in this episode, if you'd like to maybe see pictures or images, or find links to buy it for yourself, make sure and visit www.geekwishlists.com/YFY01. GeekWishList.com/YFY01. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss, and think about leaving a comment for us. Thank you guys, and we'll see you again next time when we geek out some more. This podcast is part of the GeekWishList.com family. All views, discussions, remarks, and content discussed on this show are copyright and trademark for their respective brands and legal entities. No infringement or abuse intended. Only fans discussing things that they geek out about. The Perfected Geek. Love what you love. Trademark 2018, 5 Block Radius, LLC.